Hello, beautiful women. My name is Marika Gare, and this is the Inspiration Trilogy, a podcast for women across the globe to share wisdom, advice, and just have some meaningful conversations. So today's guest is Jasmine Watson, owner of Vivo Health and qualified naturopath. So welcome to the show.
Hi, Marika. Thanks for having me.
Look, it's great to have you on the show. I know you've got a lot of wealth and wisdom behind you. So, for those listeners out there who want to learn a little bit about you, can you tell us about your journey and how you got to where you are?
Yes, yeah, I sure can. So I am Perth born and bred. So I grew up in beautiful Western Australia. So I was always at the beach, out in nature, getting a good amount of sunshine. And I was lucky enough to grow up with a grandmother that was quite focused on holistic health. So she had breast cancer and
Okay.
she sought the help of a naturopath. And back in those days, she didn't have chemo and radiation, so it was an operation and then wait and see, basically.
Okay.
But her being such a strong lady, she took it on herself to change her diet. And she grew a lot of her own vegetables. She was born in the 1920s, so she knew how to grow and
Wow.
make a lot of things, but
Yeah.
she was truly my inspiration to think about natural health from a young age. So as I grew up, I did have some issues, like some menstrual issues. And I wasn't really sure what it was. And my mum wanted to go more of a natural route, and me being headstrong, I was like, no, I'm going to go on the pill. So I was on the pill for a long time, and that just sort of covered up the symptoms. Turns out I had PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Okay.
So that will cause certain issues for me. Um, and yeah, as I grew up, I stayed on the pill for a long time, and I was also a hairdresser, so I was constantly being exposed to chemicals and dyes and things like
Oh,
that. And I was a hairdresser for a long, long time, so it was just that long exposure. Um, but eventually, I went traveling as well. I went to London, so I just wanted to move about and grow as a human, I think.
yeah.
And when I came back, I went, no, like I'm ready. I want to be a naturopath. So when it went headfirst into the degree after after traveling nonstop for like 3 years, which is a definite shock.
Wow.
Um, and I was still doing a little bit of hairdressing at that stage, and I would do testing, like I would do hair testing and I would do a urine analysis, and I would literally see, like in the urine analysis, I would see that I was testing really high in lead. So
Really?
through that contact, through just years, um, and I mean the urine, it's what you're excreting, so I was still currently exposed to it from
Wow.
hairdressing.
Yeah.
Like I was like, gosh, this is not good. So I eventually, moved into the naturopath career and qualified. And I took it on myself to make my mission about giving women a voice and allowing them a safe space to feel heard, because it's just way too often that we have issues, like female hormone issues, and we'll be sitting there and we'll just feel like someone is dismissing our symptoms or telling us it's in our head or it's just part of being a woman. Um,
Mm.
and my gut instinct just always went, no, I just I just can't accept that. I
And a lot
can't,
of
I
that
can't,
is sort of
yeah,
from my experiences, I guess, male
yeah,
doctors who don't obviously understand what it's like.
yeah, exactly. And it's and I don't yeah, there's definitely not a dislike for that system, because they have, what they're taught is something different.
Yeah.
And their skill set is very different as well. They're doing a lot of
Mm.
things I can't.
Yeah.
But I honestly feel like we need a healthcare team as well. And no matter your budget as well, there's a lot of free information out there. It's just
Yeah.
knowing where to look. and where to listen. Like, like
Yeah,
something
yep.
like this, you know. You can get a wealth of information, and it's just discerning what's sort of right for you as an individual as well. But
Yeah, yep.
yeah, so it's pretty much now, a lot of my focus is on women's health. I do see the gents as well. And it's just that with females, it's often the hormonal stuff's more complicated as well.
Yeah.
And just a bit longer, things like that. You know, fertility and yeah, like helping assist people if they're coming off contraception and things like that. It can just take a little longer to bring things back into balance. But yeah, I'm pretty much just like been blazing a path in that time, and working in a few clinics in Perth now. And yeah, it's been great. It's been very satisfying.
Yeah. Well, I love that you've sort of followed your path, and I guess similar in a ways to your grandmother, and you learned so much great wisdom from her, and it gave you that kind of opportunities to think differently and to sort of want to do things differently. So just curious, what kind of changes did you see when you moved away from hairdressing? Because that can be very poisonous. So and that I guess you don't really realise as a consumer that hairdressers in particular, I guess, because there are so many chemicals, are, I guess, you're literally poisoning yourself, aren't you? So what changes did you see in your health when you moved away from that?
So it was a gradual moving away, because I stopped doing as much colour work, but you'll know from the second you set foot in a salon, you can smell the chemicals from perms and straightening and products and shampoo and particularly colour. But I noticed I was starting to develop a real sensitivity to chemicals. So I couldn't handle the smell of things anymore. The room would spin when I'd mix up a colour.
Wow.
It was just getting to the point where, and this is really common when we're exposed to something, the body's so smart, it'll buffer the negative effects of it for a long time. So you might not really notice, but then it's like constantly and slowly filling up a bucket. And eventually that bucket overflows and we start to get intolerances and allergies, and that's why things that never bothered us before all of a sudden just come up and go.
Yeah.
I can't stand this. I'm getting headaches, runny nose. I'm always waking up with a blocked nose. Noticing like dermatitis on the skin, like contact dermatitis from the colors and shampoo as well. And just overall, I suppose, not feeling as vital too.
Your body's just reached its limit, and it's like, okay, you've got to stop.
And if anyone's had issues with histamine, that works along the same way. It's sort of like we're fine coming into contact with something for a long time, and then all of a sudden, that histamine, that bucket's overflowing, and we're just producing way too much and getting symptoms come through. So
that's really interesting that you mentioned histamine, because I take histamine every day. I've got severe allergies, and I've been doing that for a while. Sometimes I'll stop and go off it for a couple of weeks.
Just to see.
And it takes a couple of weeks for it to, I guess, taper off, but then the symptoms come back. So I do think it's important to probably give my body a break as well.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And there's what I love with, like, I'm a naturopath, so I'm a herbalist as well, is that, even a herb like nettle, like the stinging nettle, that's so nice for allergies, and it's such a nutritious one that you can bring in for a lot of people easily. So it's designed to help lower histamine and help with seasonal allergies as well. So
there's different ways that you can take herbs, is my understanding. So and that helps different things as well. So when you mentioned sort of nettle, was that ingested or more as a tea? What kind of?
So if you're wanting to go the safe way, then a tea is fantastic. If you go to see a herbalist or a naturopath, you can obtain the prescription herbs. So they're a lot stronger. You need to have them under a consultation, any of those stronger herbs. just because they're much more potent, and it needs to be like the correct herb for you. It needs to suit you holistically as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just with the way herbs work, they're a little more intricate, I think, than, and we're still learning so much about them too. We use them for thousands of years, but you know, science is still studying them, and we're
I
finding
know.
out new
I
things.
find that, to be honest, I
Finding out
find
new
that so
things
interesting
all the
because,
time. Yeah,
yeah, they've been around since the dawn of time, and our ancestors
exactly.
had to use them, but
Well, we had.
we don't know what we're doing.
Legends.
So they say, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And when you think about pharmaceuticals, like most of them come from organic substances. They have to be inspired to make something from somewhere. So it
Yeah.
has an origin in nature most of the time. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
or they're just copying it in a synthetic way that,
yeah,
like we were
yeah,
mentioning
yeah,
earlier, causes more issues in your body than it fixes, like liver issues and kidney issues. And I'm not saying all of it; some of them have their place, but
yeah,
you know, it's interesting when you kind of learn a little bit more and
yeah.
yeah, look at
You
things
work
like
out what, and I think a lot of it is, you know, medication comes in when needed. And
that.
I honestly feel like we could receive better informed consent.
Mm,
I think that when we're given a medication, it's often not explained to us what it is, what it does, what are the side effects, what it interacts negatively with. I think that could there could be a little more caution there.
yeah.
And of course, if you're taking something, like, take it on yourself. You can look up whatever you're taking and see, and you might learn, you know, what, if you're getting some negative side effects, you might learn why.
Mm,
Yeah, I'm very much about, it's good to see your practitioners for education, but take control into your own hands as well.
yeah. I think that's very
Yeah,
important. It's something I do
yeah,
as well. And it's
feels
not just reading the
empowering.
pamphlet,
Yeah,
it's going
yeah.
further and understanding your body, because some people will react differently to different things.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
perhaps understanding how you've reacted in the past, just taking things into
Mm.
consideration, like you said.
Yeah,
But look,
yeah,
yeah, I think you've got, from our conversation now and our previous
yeah.
conversation, you've got such a wealth of knowledge to offer.
Thank
And we're
you.
saying that a lot of your clientele base
Yeah,
are women, and
yeah,
they're in, as women, we go through different transitions in life, and we go transition into womanhood, and we get that surge of
yeah,
hormones, and again
absolutely.
with fertility, and after we have babies, and then menopause, and it's just this constant cycling. So
Yeah.
what kind of offerings do you have for women in different transitions in those spaces?
Hmm.
What kind of things
Yeah,
can you offer
yeah,
to help with that?
yeah, sure. So there's obviously, as we transition, when we go from girlhood to teen and then into womanhood, um, that's such a massive hormonal fluctuation.
Yeah.
Um, so, so I definitely think that teens need to be given a lot of grace. I know it can be very hard because there's moodiness, and there's a lot more emotional outbursts and that kind of thing. But their health definitely needs to be looked at holistically. So they're going through major fluctuations and changes, and they're also dealing with like social changes as well.
Yeah.
So it's important to think about, do they have a safe space in the house? Do they have a place to talk if they choose to? Do they have a practice when there's a lot of anxiety with teens, especially around that time? Do they have a method, say a breathing technique, or some journaling techniques that can help them manage that when they're feeling overwhelmed? And I also notice, like, at this age, there is a definite obsession with junk food.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because often they might have a bit of their own money, whether it be pocket money or they're starting to earn. And then they're sort of like getting into the Maccas a lot,
Yeah.
there's a lot of soft drink and sugar. And it's often the worst thing for when you're starting to menstruate, because your body's not really making those hormones properly. is still learning how to bleed every month and how to cycle and make hormones effectively. So there can often be pain, irregular periods. You know, you can have a normal period and then the second one will go for 6 weeks sometimes. And it's important, if possible, not to just reach for something to suppress symptoms. It's important to investigate. And if you're wondering if there's issues, it's often good to look at mum and see if mum's had any issues, or nana or aunties, because these things we often all follow suit. So it's a good idea if mum has certain issues to get them investigated in the daughter as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, those young kids, like, it's definitely, you know, getting as much vegetables, fiber in, especially when they're making a lot of hormones. And with skin issues as well, it's getting antioxidants into the diet, and things like green tea are fantastic for skin. And there is a lot that can be done as far as like hygiene concerns go as well for teens. They're just, everything is in mass production, in overproduction. So that includes like sebum production, and the skin starts to break out as well.
You know, it's kind of the same, I guess, when you come, if you've been on the pill for many years, which I was as well, and then your body goes, oh, what's this? There's a big change. And again, you know, when you have babies and menopause, so it's there's a lot for our bodies to go through at each stage, and it's I think it's really important to teach the younger generation and those going from childhood to womanhood, you know, what they can do and naturally do, because back in my day, and you know, that of my mother and my grandmother and that sort of thing, it wasn't really openly talked about, and it wasn't there weren't really those options there. I mean, there were some women like your grandmother who had, I guess, a different pathways, but it just wasn't commonplace. So and look, one of the big factors, I guess, that women do suffer from during these different phases as well is fatigue, which can often come with hormonal changes. So what's a little tip you can give listeners to changes they can make, whether it be in their kitchen with herbs or coming to see you and for certain things? What's a good way to start changing fatigue? It's probably a really complex issue.
Absolutely. So with fatigue, it's often the most common symptom that we see: fatigue, headache, and it's really important to tap into what is depleting us and what is making us, I suppose, what is depleting our energy stores and our energy production. And that can be a lot of different things, but perhaps if we keep, like, a diary is a really good idea, and then we notice that our energy levels are starting to drop, then we can record what happened around that time. Say I ate breakfast and then 20 minutes later I felt like I needed a nap. That's a very good indication that we need to look at the diet and how your blood sugar is responding to food. If you find that you're interacting with certain people and you're feeling fatigued, like mentally fatigued after, that is a very real thing. It's, you know, your mind can be processing a lot in conflict situations, and you need to sort of pinpoint that and find ways to remedy it. So naturopathy does teach sort of ways to regulate your nervous system, so then you're not constantly in the fight or flight and you're actually getting proper rest. So the body often likes movement as a way to reset the nervous system. So if you're starting to feel anxiety, or you're starting to feel like you're getting really worked up and you know you're going to crash and feel super fatigued later, it's a good idea to kind of physically work off some of that nervousness. You might have seen athletes before they start a race and they're like, you know, they're sort of like shaking their legs and all that sort of stuff. It's pretty much that. That's a great way to regulate your nervous system and prevent that crash. If you feel like you're in this constant fight or flight, and it's just causing a lot of fatigue as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really about knowing, like, yourself as an individual, what is draining you and what is leading to your fatigue. Is it from a nutritional standpoint? Is it something to do with what's going on in your life? Is there some conditions going on as well that are causing fatigue? For females, particularly if there's a strong family history, thyroid conditions should be investigated. And unfortunately, a lot of thyroid conditions are not picked up until their later stage because we don't get a lot of the testing covered on Medicare as well. We get a very minimal amount. They just test one hormone that comes from the brain, and it often won't pick up thyroid dysfunction until it's later on down the line. So by then you might have been fatigued for 10 years. Which is just really unfortunate. But if you have, a functional health practitioner, nutritionist, naturopath that is happy to get pathology testing for you, then you can investigate some of these things as well. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you're right. Fatigue is such a broad symptom.
It is,
And we just need, like, to create some awareness of self and what's triggering this and what's going on. And if you can employ the help of someone to kind of piece everything together and investigate what's really going on, because when you're tired, the motivation to do things is difficult, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when you're tired, you're sort of thinking, oh, I know I have to work this out, but I don't have the energy. I don't have the motivation.
Yeah, you don't have the physical or mental energy. It's just.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like if there's long-term illness present, it's really difficult. It is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we're also in a very fast-paced kind of world where, reflecting on what's going on with us comes last as well, and self-care comes last.
Especially as women too, we kind of carry the load of everything. And we just kind of accept that that's what we do. But we often wait till we crash and burn before we look at things for ourselves.
Exactly. So, and the thing is, once as you probably know yourself, once you do crash and burn, it takes a long time to actually come back.
Yeah.
Like, I think when I had proper chronic fatigue, and this was from, like, working and studying, and just my thyroid had some issues. I had a gut infection and I had some thyroid issues, and I just completely crashed and burned. And I think it took a year as well to build myself back up, because, even with a great amount of knowledge, life doesn't exactly stop. We still need to support ourselves and our families. And you still need to live everyday life and deal with some stresses.
And we're sort of mentioning, we'll mention before, like, especially after COVID, so many people we're getting back. We've gone from having this quiet kind of life and in lockdown and everything else to going full throttle. And it's double throttle, because we're trying to make up for lost time and make up financially for all that time. And it's just so many people I've spoken to in the last 6 months have reached some sort of burnout. And like you say, it does take. I mean, last year I suffered my own burnout, and like you said, I know better, but sometimes you can't always stop.
No, that's it.
And it took me a long time to get over that, and the extreme fatigue. I felt like it was a struggle just to get out of bed, because I was
heavy
physically. I just couldn't. It was difficult. So it took me months to get over that. Probably 6 months to up to a year, really, to feel a lot better.
And it can depend. I think a lot of people they've coined the term adrenal fatigue, but it's technically incorrect, because the adrenals are not fatigued, but it is when your cortisol isn't regulated properly from the brain. So if you're curious about what stage you're in, like if you feel like you're leading up to burnout, you can look up something called general adaptation syndrome. which is talking about the dysregulation of the brain, talking to your adrenals, your stress hormones and that kind of thing.
Yeah, yep.
So you can see if you're in a stage where basically you're feeling a little bit tired, you still wake up okay in the morning, you still go to sleep, or if you're more towards the middle where you're starting to wake up and just feel like you're dragging your feet a little bit. You can often get a kick of energy before bed.
Yep.
Because everything is delayed so much, because the cortisol release is delayed so much. It's meant to peak at 6 a.m. So you might be peaking at 10.
Yeah.
And then your testosterone's peaking at 12. And then you're just like, the whole cycle and rhythm of your day is out. And then the only time you have a bit of energy is 10 o'clock, something like that. It's important to know what stage you're in, because if you progress into proper burnout, where it's just a really heavy fatigue, there's very little motivation to get up, you cannot stay awake in the afternoon, that is getting into your proper chronic fatigue. And like you said, it can take months, or like for me, it took 12 months to come back from. And the body does have a memory of that state. And when there's a lot of stress present, it tends to down-regulate stress hormone cortisol. So you actually feel more fatigued as well.
Yeah.
So we think about high cortisol all the time, but you can get to a point where your body doesn't make as much, or it doesn't provide as much of it. And our cortisol's low. And that's when you're in a chronic state, like probably what you were in then.
Yeah.
And it's just a very, the body is always trying to protect us. It's definitely, when you're unwell for a considerable amount of time, you can feel like your body is out to get you, or like, you're being punished for something, but it's actually just trying to bring everything back into balance. We can't have this super high cortisol all the time. It's actually toxic for us. We need to come to a point where we have less in the body, so it produces less. It's always looking after us and trying to protect us. It's just it doesn't feel that way.
I know, and you know what? A lot of us try and push through when we're feeling sick. We're just got to push through, and that's kind of the worst thing that we could do. I think in this day and age, we're probably learning a little bit more to really pull back. But it's, in my childhood, that's what we were taught. You just carry on regardless and keep going.
Exactly.
So it's a hard thing when you're sort of used to doing that. But you've got such a wealth of experience, and I think for any of the listeners out there who've listened to this conversation, obviously it's clear that you do have that knowledge, and it's probably best to just come and talk to you, get a bit more information, and really help make some changes, because it can be all-consuming, especially, as women, as we've mentioned. So for those out there who want to reach out to you, what's the best place to do that, and where can we come and get a session from you?
So my social media is Vivo Health, VIVO Health, and my direct messages are always open there. I practice in 2 clinics in Perth. So I practice at Sage Health, which is a holistic chiropractors in Fremantle. So I can take bookings there a few days a week, and I'm also at Sarnas Wellness, which is a holistic health clinic in North Beach. So north and south of the river in Perth location. And we offer telehealth as well for people.
Okay, so you can reach out to regional.
Absolutely. So you can reach out through any of those avenues if you're wanting to sort of make inquiries, and my bookings are currently open as well. So, or even telehealth if that suits.
Oh, well, look, thank you so much for coming on this show. I really enjoyed the conversation. You've got so much to offer everyone out there, so I definitely recommend reaching out. I probably will be myself as well.
Thank you.
I think I definitely need a bit more help there too. So
I swear everyone needs a naturopath though. Everyone needs a team.
Look, thank you once again for being on the show. All the listeners out there, make sure you reach out. Yeah, and hopefully we'll be seeing more of you out in the ether, and see where you're coming up and doing things in the future.
Yeah, look forward to it. Yeah. One woman at a time will change the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And for all the listeners out there, we'll be up with more episodes soon. Bye.